What's up, guys? Justin here. I recently had a really great conversation with a client of mine named Max, who just finished a long-term one-on-one consulting program with me. So check it out. Enjoy. So how would you describe the principles? Like, if you had to teach somebody, what would you say are the overall concepts and principles that you've learned?
The number one thing that I've learned is that you have to do this for yourself. You have to do this because you want to grow as a person. You want to become a more social person, and you want to do it for you. You're not doing it to seek approval from other people. You're not doing it to seek approval from women. You're not doing it to seek approval of a peer group. You're doing it because this makes you happy. Right? And I think that was the number one lesson I've learned, because all of my life I have always been a people pleaser. I did things because I thought that it would put me in other people's favor. And 99 times out of 100, that didn't happen. It only made me end up looking worse.
Exactly, because you try to impress somebody,
right?
And then at some point you realize, wow, me trying to impress people all the time, they're not so impressed.
Exactly.
Maybe I'll try something different.
Yeah. Basically, every relationship, every different kind of relationship I've had in my life, I've always felt that you need to say this thing in order to be accepted. You need to do this. You need to fly this way. And if you don't, then there's consequences for that.
Right.
So I always try to do what I thought other people felt was the right thing.
Right. And now you're learning, as we wrap up now, you're realizing that the only way you're going to get anywhere is if you start asking what you want. Not what other people. You can consider that, right? It's not to say you're going to steamroll over people, but you have to consider first, what do I want? What's the best thing in my best interests?
Yeah.
Right? And then go from there. Use that as the starting point.
And in reality, this is kind of the underlying bedrock of everything else. Everything relates back to this idea of being able to ask for what you want, going for what you want, and setting boundaries. I was a terrible boundary setter for the first 30 years of my life. I let everybody walk on me because if I stood up and I try to enforce a boundary with someone, I thought that was going to put me out of favor with that person.
Right.
And that, what I've come to realize after doing this for several months is that even if it does happen, even if I'm out of favor with someone because I set a boundary, so what? Was that person worth being in my life to begin with?
Right. It's kind of like viewing other people's approval as an end in itself.
Yeah.
It's like, well, don't do this, don't do that. Why? Because then they'll be mad at you, right? If you do it, then they'll be mad at you, or they'll have a negative reaction. Okay, so it's like the assumption there is that a positive reaction from strangers or from colleagues or something is like a good end in itself.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily always the case, And when you realize that, it's actually very liberating. Because you can see, okay, yes, sometimes it is important to get someone's approval, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just totally irrelevant.
Right. And what I'm finding here is that for strangers or for people who I don't know very well, it's just not worth getting approval from them, right? You get approval from people who you know, people who you trust. Those are the important people in your life. Strangers who have invested nothing in you and you've invested hardly anything in them, why go through that trouble?
Yeah.
It's just going to make life more stressful. You're going to raise the cortisol levels. You don't need that.
Exactly. And people, a beautiful woman, right? Oh, I want to get her approval solely because she's physically attractive, right? That's what most men do. It's like, oh, she's pretty, so therefore I want to impress her. I want her to feel good about me. What about other things, specific concepts that were new that you learned during the course of this program?
Nonverbal communication is a very important part. It's probably one of the most important things.
Right.
Because, most guys,
by the way, sorry to interrupt you, not just with women, but in general.
In general,
with
absolutely.
everybody. Yeah.
And this goes for your career, this goes for your job, this goes for interactions with your boss.
Right.
Body language and nonverbal communication is paramount. When guys get into this, and I see this on the internet forums, and I see this, just talking to other guys who are like-minded, shall we say. Everyone's concerned with what to say. Everybody's concerned with the words that come out of your mouth.
Right.
That's such a small portion of the total picture. It's almost, as much time as they concern themselves with worrying about what to say, they should be more concerned with how they say it and how they present themselves while they're saying it.
Exactly.
If they put in as much effort into that as they did into the actual words, they would progress a whole lot quicker than what they're doing.
And because, and why is that? It's an interesting thing to look at. Because most guys that have trouble with women or with communication skills, the reason they have trouble is because they're very analytical and very logical. And so they're looking at the problem in a very logical, straightforward way, as opposed to tapping into the emotional side. So I always make the distinction between the logical, analytical, informational style of communication versus emotional, feeling-based, physical, sensual communication. And it's the latter, that's where attraction really happens. You get to know somebody, you develop chemistry with them, not because their resume sounds good. So, I went to this school and I do this job and I live in this location and I make X amount of dollars, and it's interesting you mentioned that because even in job interviews, even in career situations, it's not always the most talented people or the most intelligent people or the people that went to the best schools or graduated with the top grades that get the job. It's the people that are the schmoozers.
Right.
The people that are the charmers.
Exactly.
Right?
The people who you can work with on a day-to-day basis.
And they make you feel good and they exude positive, relatable energy. Those are the people that actually get the promotions, get the bonuses. And everybody's like, how the hell did that guy get that position?
Right.
Because he knows how to talk to the boss. He knows how to make the boss feel good.
Right, and he knows how to contribute to the corporate culture that he's in or she's in.
Right. And so when we're trying to communicate with women, we're thinking about, okay, what do I say to her to get a certain reaction or something? And we're completely missing the point. We're completely missing the ball. The real issue is, how do I say it, as you said? How do I present myself? Do I have a strong vibe? Do I have a weak vibe? Do I have a confident vibe? Do I have a talkative, energetic state? Do I have a more low-key, more chill kind of state? That's what matters.
First of all, you mentioned the states. I think, first of all, you have to understand what your true personality is. I mean, if you have to go online and take a 16-type personality test to find out, do it. But find out who you really are in terms of your personality, and then cater that style to don't try to change it. Like if you're an introvert, a strong introvert like I am, don't try to become like a super boisterous extrovert, but adapt the techniques so that it fits with who you are. You're going to be a whole lot more congruent that way, and that's going to come across as a whole lot more real when you're in an action, when you're in an interaction with a woman.
Exactly, and the temptation is always to say, I'm not good enough, so therefore I need to act like someone else. But that's not really what's happening. What's happening is not that you're not good enough. You are good enough, but you're hiding yourself. You're holding yourself back. You're limiting yourself. And so your true personality, your true strengths, and your true awesomeness is just not coming out.
Right. Only a small part of it is, and you need the whole part of that to come out, the whole thing.
Oftentimes, not even that with a lot of guys. Like in my case personally, for a long time I was just acting in social situations. I was trying to present a certain image, almost wearing a mask, in order to impress people or get them to like me or whatever, impress women, because I thought I had to act a certain way. So that wasn't even me at all. That was a completely fictitious invention of my mind, essentially. You probably an agglomeration of messages from movies and the media and random assumptions that I had about women and attraction. Just all this random stuff coming together to create this persona, right, that I was presenting to women, and it was completely just out of left field. So
Yeah, you have to be true to yourself. It's not about becoming a different person. It is about becoming the best version. I know that sounds very cliche, but it is becoming the best version of you.
Yeah.
But you have to know who you are first.
Right.
So if you haven't spent time figuring out who you are as a person, you need to do that, I think, before you really get into this in a very deep level.
Right.
The best thing that I've learned, probably the most important thing that is going to stick with me, is positive mindset.
Right.
And you get that.
I remember when you were first doing affirmations on a regular basis, you did those every day, and you're still doing them daily.
Absolutely.
I gave you that assignment as one of the first things because I could tell early on that you had a mindset issue in terms of attitude, in terms of belief in yourself, and so on. So I said, okay, I'm going to give this guy the assignment to do affirmations. And you were doing them on a regular basis, and that totally changed everything.
Absolutely. Not only do you see the world in a different way, but you also start taking stock of the people around you in your life, and you look at the way they behave, and you see how they enabled you to behave in the negative way that you behaved in before. And what happens is, after a while, when you start to really change your mindset and become more of a positive thinker, what happens is a lot of those people that try to bring you back down to that negative state, it causes a bit of a conflict.
Right.
And I've had to deal with this in my life with people who are very close to me, and it's been a bit of a struggle. But I've kept my chin up, and I've never lost my positive outlook, my glass half full outlook.
Right.
And I think that has definitely changed me for the better, because there's an old saying in this community that we're involved in. It's like you're the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most. Your attitude is a reflection of the average of the 5 people you hang out with the most. And if those 5 people are going to be negative and complaining and not doing anything to fix themselves and not doing anything to fix their lives, you are going to be in that same space.
Yeah.
So what happens is this kind of a natural outgrowth of thinking more positively. You are going to basically, if I could be so blunt, you're basically going to outgrow those people.
Yeah.
And
absolutely. And you'll set a positive example for them too, because sometimes they'll say to themselves, "Wow, I thought I knew his place in the totem pole. I thought I had him, in a bucket and had a label on him, and I thought I knew everything. But now he's changing before my eyes." To certain people will be very disturbed by that, as you said, and they it's like it doesn't compute, and it'll like fry their brain or something. But others will, secretly, maybe on the surface they'll have a negative reaction, but in the back of their mind they're thinking, "Wow, if he can do it, maybe I can do it too."
Right.
So it's actually an inspirational when you set an example like that.
Well, I think for some people it's definitely that way, but definitely not for all.
For all?
Some people are just going to be stuck in their ways no matter what.
Yeah.
There's not much you can do
and
about
it's unfortunate, but that's one of the things also I always look at when I'm working with a new client. It's like I'm wondering, is he committed? Because I can work with anybody who's committed. We might disagree about everything, we might debate about it, but if he's committed to improving, I can work with him. I can figure out a way. The challenge is with the guys that are not committed.
Right.
Because I can't teach hunger. I can't teach that. That's that fire, that passion. You cannot really instill that in somebody. You can give them examples, you can give them stories or something. You can try to motivate them, but at the end of the day, the motivation comes from inside, not outside.
And I've also learned a lot about fashion and just styling for when you want to, not just for approaching women, but just for interacting with people in general. Nobody, male or female, wants to really be around a slovenly slob.
Right.
If you're wearing shirts that are 2 sizes too big for you, and your pants are, like out to here in like a bell-bottom type fashion, and your shoes are too big, and your belt doesn't match your shoes, and you've got like stains on your shirt.
Right.
Nobody's really going to be want around that.
Yeah.
Want to be around that.
Of course, and it's also like it sends a message.
Right.
It sends a message. It's a way of communicating. I was talking with a guy the other day actually, and I told him, look, he dresses very casually, sneakers and jeans on. You know, it's not like his clothes don't fit him. His clothes fit him, but it's just looks like he's not putting any effort into it.
Right.
So I told him, look, you need to dress up. You need to actually make an effort here. Gave him some specific pointers. About a week later, he comes into the group. He's dressed in this amazing outfit, perfectly fitted blazer, collared shirt. Never seen him in a collared shirt before. Really nice shoes. Only thing he had to fix was his hair. His hair was still, you know, let's say basic
Yeah,
hair.
well,
But
I'm still working on that myself.
Yeah.
Still trying to find a style that suits me, but yeah.
But you know, his image was completely different. He looked like he was, you know, a Silicon Valley startup millionaire.
Right.
You know, instead of just like a college student. And he was saying, yeah, like I'm getting looks from people on the subway.
Right.
People are noticing me. People, this is a totally new experience, just from the way he was dressed.
Right. And you know, that's when the people say, you know, there's a debate that, you know, goes along the lines of looks don't matter, but I think that, you know, when it comes to not just attraction but also how you feel about yourself on the inside, I think looks definitely do matter. And when I say looks here, I'm talking about how you take care of yourself, how you present yourself, your hair, your clothes, what you do in the gym or don't do in the gym. All of that is a factor.